It has been 20 years since we got married. There was never a moment when I felt such intense fear towards my husband. How much do you earn? Until now, I would have honestly shared my salary without any doubts. However, something about my husband's expression felt off this time. A sinister smile, as if he was plotting something, appeared on his face. Unable to ignore this discomfort, I found myself lying for the first time. I am Natalie, 48 years old. I currently work as a first-class architect at a construction company owned by my uncle. Living with my husband, our ordinary daily life was my sanctuary. We do not have children. While it is a bit lonely, the life we have built together has been peaceful and happy. Allow me to talk a little about my journey so far. When I was 5, my parents divorced, and I ended up living just with my mother. However, when I was 15, my mother passed away, and I faced the reality of having to live on my own. My grandparents had also passed away when I was young, and I had no one else to rely on. My father was still alive, but he had a new family, and I could not intrude on their lives. Amidst this despair, my uncle and his wife, my mother's brother, extended a helping hand to me. "Natalie, come stay with us," they said. My uncle and his wife had 2 children of the same age as me. Though we were not related by blood, they raised me just as if I was really their own daughter, without any distinction from their children. I had planned to start working immediately after graduating from middle school. However, my uncle and his wife encouraged me to continue my education, and thanks to them, I was able to attend university. Both of them held first-class architect qualifications and managed a small construction firm. Their passion for their work was intense. Although they sometimes disagreed on design and construction methods, I could feel the deep trust between them. Above all, watching my uncle and aunt work with blueprints, skillfully maneuvering rulers and pencils, was very impressive to me, and I genuinely found it cool. None of their children chose to pursue architecture. On the other hand, I naturally found myself following in their footsteps. After graduating from the university's architecture department, I joined their company. I always wanted to be of help. While working, I also obtained my license. From then on, my uncle and aunt entrusted me with more responsibilities, and I was kept busy with various tasks. I married my husband, who is 5 years my senior, when I was 35 years old. It was a first marriage for both of us, what one might call a late marriage. Even if there wasn't a burning passion, I married because I wanted someone by my side who could support me, and whom I could support. Initially, I had a faint hope that we could build a relationship of mutual growth and trust, like that of my uncle and his wife. The two of us worked together to maintain a stable life, and I thought all we needed was to gradually save for our retirement. However, a major turning point arrived. My respected uncle suffered a myocardial infarction and passed away. Although my aunt maintained her composure, her expression was tinged with indescribable sadness. The grief of losing my uncle must have been immeasurably deep for her. But I couldn't dwell in sadness forever. I was extremely busy handling the handover of projects my uncle was working on and reporting to clients, so much so that I hardly had any time to rest. After the memorial service for my uncle, my aunt approached me with a proposal. "Natalie, I have something to discuss about the company." I had assumed that my aunt would take over after my uncle. "Would you consider taking over?" "Me?" "I think it would be better if you continued," I responded. "I'm already old. Compared to me, Natalie, you are still young and you have the qualifications. You've been working here since you graduated and you have a proven track record, so I think you have the trust of the employees." I realized that it would soon be 25 years since I started working at my uncle's company. Of course, I knew the company inside out, and I felt that I had reached a veteran level in terms of work. However, the responsibility seemed too heavy for me alone, so I decided to discuss it with my husband. I did not miss the fleeting change in his expression when I spoke to him. "That's a lot of pressure, to take on the responsibility of the company. Maybe it suits you better to work at your own pace," I expected him to say. So before hearing his response, I sighed and muttered, "Maybe it's impossible for me to take over after my uncle after all." "No, if your aunt has entrusted it to you, you should take it on as a way to repay the favor." Surprisingly, my husband was supportive of the idea of me taking over the company. It felt as if I had received passionate encouragement from an enthusiastic teacher. My husband was always calm, not very talkative, and had a gentle personality. Seeing him lean in and persuade me so forcefully was simply astonishing. I don't know anything about running a company. Can I really be a president? Everyone feels nervous at first. Are you going to give up without even trying? You're right. My husband's encouragement gradually made me more positive. When my aunt first approached me, I thought it was absolutely impossible, but you never know. If you're anxious doing it alone, I'll quit my job and help out. His words struck me deeply. There's no need for you to quit your job. Wouldn't it be better that way? Let's do it together, like your uncle and aunt. I was touched beyond words because I had never expected him to go this far. I was so glad I had chosen him as my spouse. At that time, I felt a great sense of relief. Little did I know that what was to come would completely change my feelings. The next day, I told my aunt that my husband had declared he would support the company with me. Her reaction was unexpected. "It's nice of you to offer, but if things don't go well, you and Natalie could be in a difficult position." From my experience, I'm not really in favor of spouses working together in the same company. The relationship between my uncle and aunt that I had observed seemed wonderful, but the reality was that being constantly together, both at home and work, led to endless arguments. That's why I think my aunt was worried about our future relationship as a couple and warned us. I accepted my aunt's advice and shared it with my husband. I was getting motivated. My husband seemed dissatisfied, so when I told him, "I've already settled this with my aunt, there's nothing we can do," he suddenly became angry, saying, "You're the president, right? You need to speak up more." Honestly, since my husband only had experience in administrative work, there really wasn't any practical job to offer him. However, stating this fact outright could shatter his feelings. The presence of my aunt reassured me that things would somehow work out. "If there's any trouble, please advise me again," I told my husband, trying to appease him for the time being. However, I felt conflicted after seeing a different side of him. He had so confidently said, "I'll support you," that I convinced myself everything would be fine. That's how I began my journey as the president of the company. Soon I started to notice changes in my husband's appearance and behavior. He began to pay more attention to his appearance and started wearing expensive watches and clothes. He began collecting brand-name handkerchiefs, ties, wallets, and bags. Since we split our monthly living expenses in half from our salaries, the remainder of each of our salaries was freely used as personal spending money. Despite our decision to save a certain amount for retirement, my husband was flipping through a brand catalog, admiring his newly purchased shoes. "Did you buy new shoes?" "Yeah, they're the latest model. Cost me $3,000. I thought the shoes were nice." But just last month, he boasted about buying a new watch for $7,000. Lately, his spending seemed excessively lavish. Is it really okay to keep buying such expensive things? It's fine. You're the president, yet you lack desires. I'm helping the economy by spending money in your stead. I wanted to object to his logic, but since he wasn't using my money, I refrained from commenting. Yet, his behavior grew increasingly flamboyant. "My parents are planning to go to Korea next month," he mentioned. "Weren't your parents on a trip this month too?" His parents had already been to Guam and Hawaii this year for vacations. Given the frequent travels and the modest lifestyle funded primarily by agriculture, I wondered where my in-laws were getting the money to fund such trips. Now retired from work, they had sold the farmland, but that wouldn't have brought in a substantial sum. When I voiced my thoughts, my husband proudly declared, "Of course it's my money. I'm just being filial." Why all of a sudden? You've never done this before. It's obvious, isn't it? I have the money now, so it's only natural to spend it on my parents. You might not understand this, Natalie, since you don't have parents. I was stunned by his words that seemed to mock my lack of parents. He had never belittled me like this before. I stood there dumbfounded, while he remained utterly indifferent. I've been wanting to ask, is the president's salary really that good? His eyes seemed to hold nothing but avarice, as if money was his only interest. How much do you make? Your salary alone should be enough for both of us. I plan to give mine to my parents. Show me your bank book. Feeling a wave of disgust as he reached out his hand, I didn't want to reveal anything to such a person. Internally screaming, I lied. My salary? It's $1,500 a month. $1,500? That can't be right. Just because I'm the president doesn't mean I earn a lot. We're not making that much money. You call yourself a president with that salary. I didn't become president for the money, it's for the company. With a mix of anger and sadness, I walked away from the conversation. At that moment, I was certain that my husband's intentions were all about money. He had suggested I take the role of president and offered his support, but it was all a strategy to gain financial benefits. His cold and greedy eyes revealed it all. I could no longer trust my husband. Yet, it didn't end there. The next day, I was severely criticized by my in-laws in a harsh tone. How can you, as a wife, not give your husband control over the finances? What are you thinking? I could hear my father-in-law's shouting voice over the phone. Then my mother-in-law spoke. Aren't you getting a bit too arrogant? You became president thanks to our son. Don't get too pleased with yourself, thinking you succeeded on your own. Originally, my in-laws were calm and kind people. They never interfered with our lives and always watched over us warmly. My husband probably doesn't believe that my salary is $1,500. He must suspect that I am hiding my true income, thinking that I earn much more. He might as well say, "Stop lying, no more secrets, give up all the money and property you have." Money can change people so easily. I have felt the terror of this transformation firsthand. Just as I decided to minimize my interactions with my husband and in-laws, an incident occurred. President, there is a visitor for you. I was focused on organizing documents at my desk when the receptionist approached me. There were no scheduled visitors, which made me wonder if something unexpected had happened. Seeing her uneasy expression, I felt even more uneasy. Who is it? Well, it's your husband and your in-laws. They apparently demanded to see the president immediately and were causing a commotion, so they were reluctantly guided to the reception room to wait until they calmed down. As I sighed, my aunt, who had been listening, gently spoke up, understanding how I felt. Natalie, I'll come with you. Having previously confided in my aunt about my husband and in-laws, she was ready to support me. Thank you, Aunt. Together with my aunt, I nervously opened the door to the reception room. Inside, my husband and in-laws were there, arms crossed and taking an arrogant stance. Natalie, stop lying. There's no way your salary as a president is just $1,500. My husband slammed the desk and shouted at me. Following suit, my father-in-law criticized me as well. A president with a salary of $1,500? I've never heard of such incompetence. Then my mother-in-law coldly added her thoughts. Such a president should be fired immediately. Our son has been dedicated to his company for over 20 years since he was a fresh graduate. Glancing to the side, I saw my aunt pressing a handkerchief to her mouth, perhaps holding back a laugh. I wasn't in a state of mind to laugh. Just the thought of being legally related to these people sent a shiver down my spine. That's right, fire her? Let our son take over. If he becomes president, he'll have a salary of $100,000, and will become board members with a salary of $5,000 each. They were shamelessly making these absurd demands. Indeed, my husband had been a dedicated employee in the company for many years. The only thing my husband had going for him was his seriousness. Beyond that, he lacked any standout skills or talents. This was why he never held a position of authority. Despite this, I thought he was a sincere and kind person, and that's how we had managed as a couple until now. Feeling betrayed by my husband was incredibly painful. Perhaps with me becoming a president, he deluded himself into thinking he was entitled to a similar status. Even though my in-laws were just ordinary people from a rural area, now they seemed completely changed, as if they were strangers. Beside me, stunned by the unfolding events, my aunt quietly sipped her tea and observed the situation. Her expression, unchanging, gave no hint of her inner thoughts. It was clear, however, that she was deeply contemplating something amidst this chaos. After my husband and in-laws had aired their grievances and demands, my aunt set down her cup of tea and spoke. "I understand what you're saying. President, let's proceed as they wish and conduct a job interview." My aunt glanced at me with a smile at the corner of her mouth. "Let's do that. Since you've made the effort to come here, I decided to follow my aunt's plan. I reminded myself that they were here as job applicants. As the president, I resolved to act with all due propriety. Please start by introducing yourselves." When I addressed my husband, the expressions of my in-laws changed drastically. "Do you realize what you're saying to your own husband? Who do you think you are? Don't get too high and mighty just because you're the wife. How many times do we have to say it?" I cut off my in-laws as they tried to speak and said firmly, "I am asking this gentleman a question. Please remain quiet." My in-laws couldn't hide their surprise as I, who had been silent like a statue until now, suddenly launched into a counterattack. My husband was also caught off guard by the sudden turn of events, visibly flustered. "Is this really okay?" I wondered. "What is your current occupation?" I restarted the conversation firmly. "What do you mean all of a sudden?" "At the company, I work diligently. I'm asking about the content of your work, not your work ethic. Please answer the question asked." The atmosphere was like that of a high-pressure job interview faced by job seekers. My husband, startled by my words, began to sweat profusely, his gaze wandering restlessly around the room. "Since this is an interview, please be mindful of your language as well," my aunt pointed out with a tone full of sarcasm, resembling a stern office manager. It was unusual for my normally approachable aunt to speak this way. Facing my husband, who looked as if he had been scolded by a parent, I continued sarcastically. "You're here for an interview, yet you didn't bring a resume or a work history document? And it's the first time someone has come for an interview with their parents." I continued with a look of incredulity. "But you seem eager to work. There's no use in saying this, I suppose. Shall we continue? Please answer the previous question about the nature of your work." I fully embraced the role of an interviewer, smiling at my husband. I make documents and organize invoices?" "I see. Could you explain a bit more about what that involves? Also, please tell me about the tools you use." "Tools." Surprised that my husband seemed so clueless, my expression showed my astonishment. I need to keep my composure. "Then, please explain in detail how you organize the invoices." I calculate each invoice with a calculator, then I compare the figures with the delivery notes. Calculating each one with a calculator? That sounds time-consuming. Are you mocking me? I'm working diligently. It's clear he's not understanding the purpose of my questions. Understood. Now, please give us your self-promotion pitch. Self-promotion? I'm telling you I can replace you as president. If I become president, I'll let you live a more luxurious life. I exchanged a glance with my aunt, and we both smirked. The real comeback starts now. What do you think a job is? What? Do you think you can do anything useful in this company? From what I've heard, there seems to be nothing you can do. I even doubt you're of any use in everyday life. It seemed that no one could find words to respond to my counter. Enough with taking work lightly. This company is not a place for someone who can't be a part of the workforce. Not a part of the workforce. Am I wrong? Are you still organizing invoices with a calculator? What era are you living in? Have you ever created documents using a computer, or are you still doing everything by hand? At that moment, my husband visibly shuddered. I couldn't feel any sympathy for the pathetic figure he cut. Then, sensing my gaze, his expression grew even more terrified. I just remembered something I have to do, so I'm going home. Bye. Leaving? But the interview isn't over yet. No, the interview is fine. I'm sure the company will be fine without me, as long as Natalie is here, haha. His laugh was forced, and his face was clearly strained. I decided it was time to fulfill my responsibilities as a wife one last time. You've forgotten this. I handed him the divorce papers. What do you mean by this? I can't be with someone who only has eyes for money any longer. What is that supposed to mean? I haven't forgotten any of the things you've said to me. You mocked me for not having parents. I've had enough. My husband and his parents were stunned. Amidst their shock, my aunt stepped in to bring an end to the situation. Thank you for coming today. We will inform you about the result of the interview separately. She then escorted them out of the building. Such appalling people, really. I'm sorry for involving you in this mess. Don't worry about it. It's astounding how much people can change when money is involved. I could only agree with my aunt's words. Afterwards, my husband and I proceeded with our divorce through lawyers. During the divorce process, it was proven that my salary was indeed $1,500. However, this figure did not include board member remuneration or qualification allowances. Ideally, these should have been added to my monthly salary, but according to the arrangement I had set up, these allowances were to be received together with my bonuses. I simply adopted the same method my uncle used because there was no particularly deep reason for doing otherwise. After becoming president, 6 months later, I arranged to have the allowances added to my monthly salary following my separation from my husband. Still, I couldn't comprehend why my husband had changed so dramatically. Later, I discovered that he had been facing a recommendation to resign from his company. Despite his long-standing diligence at work, the idea of being dismissed in such a manner had never crossed his mind, and his pride was deeply wounded. He couldn't bring himself to tell me about his impending dismissal, and during this time I was asked to take over as president. Perhaps in an attempt to maintain what was left of his crumbling pride, he belittled me to keep himself intact. With me as president, he may have deluded himself into thinking he was in a similar position, leading him down a path of becoming an inhumane person. After that, my husband left the company and has been living back at his parents' home, looking for work. If he hadn't led such a lavish lifestyle, he might have been able to maintain a more comfortable life. The savings he once had quickly dwindled, and now his bank account was nearly empty. This whole ordeal has been a stark reminder of how money can profoundly change people. Feeling the terrifying power of money, I was deeply affected. President, let's take a short break. I was absorbed in the blueprints, working tirelessly, when my aunt approached and suggested a pause. Since the divorce, I felt a bit more at ease at work. Thanks to this newfound peace, this quarter's sales have been progressing well, and we're on track to meet our goals. I'm pleased to share some good news about a bonus increase with the employees. I'm truly grateful that Natalie took over, my aunt said as she sipped her tea. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm the one who should be thankful. It's because of you, Natalie, that we've made it this far. You've always been kind and strong, even from a young age. My judgment wasn't wrong. Thank you. I was at a loss for words and quickly drank my tea. Suddenly, tears started to spill over. Am I being of any help, even if only a little? I quietly placed the cup back on the desk and continued with my work.